Welcome back to the Bizfluencer Pixelanet podcast channel. Today we are delving into a critical topic that every leader will face at some point in their career: leading through crisis. Now, when we say crisis, we are not just talking about the big headline grabbing events like natural disasters or financial meltdowns. A crisis can be anything that disrupts your business's normal operations and threatens its goals, whether it's a sudden loss of a major client, a product recall, a cyber attack, or even internal conflicts within your team. The truth is, crises are inevitable. No matter how well you plan, there will always be unforeseen events that throw you off course. But what sets great leaders apart is not their ability to avoid crises altogether, but their ability to navigate them effectively. Now let us try to know the anatomy of a crisis. Before we dive into the strategies for leading through a crisis, let's first understand the typical phases of a crisis. Pre-crisis. This is the calm before the storm. Ideally, this is when you should be doing your risk assessments, creating contingency plans, and building a resilient culture. However, sometimes crises happen without warning. Crisis impact. This is when the crisis hits. It's characterized by shock, confusion, and a sense of urgency. This is the time for quick thinking and decisive action. Crisis management. This is when you start to implement your crisis plan. It's about containing the damage, communicating with stakeholders, and maintaining business continuity. Post-crisis. This is the time for reflection and learning. What went wrong? What went right? How can we improve our response in the future? Now let us try to know key leadership traits required to manage a crisis. So what does it take to lead effectively through a crisis? Here are some key traits. Calmness under pressure. It's easy to panic in a crisis, but that's the worst thing you can do. A calm leader can think clearly, make sound decisions, and instill confidence in their team. Decisiveness. In a crisis, time is of the essence. Leaders need to be able to make quick decisions even with limited information. Transparency and communication. Honest and open communication is crucial during a crisis. Leaders need to keep their team, customers, and other stakeholders informed about what's happening and what steps are being taken to resolve the situation. Empathy. A crisis can be stressful and emotional for everyone involved. Leaders need to show empathy and compassion for their team members. Adaptability. Crises rarely go according to plan. Leaders need to be flexible and adaptable, able to adjust their strategies as the situation evolves. Practical strategies for leading through crisis are as follows. Activate your crisis plan. If you have a crisis plan, now is the time to put it into action. If you don't have one, start by identifying your priorities. What needs to be done immediately to protect your people, your assets, and your reputation? Secondly, communicate, and communicate. Keep your team informed about what's happening and what's expected of them. Be honest and transparent even if you don't have all the answers. Delegate and empower. You can't do everything yourself. Delegate tasks to your team members and empower them to make decisions. Stay focused on the big picture. It's easy to get bogged down in the details during a crisis. Don't lose sight of your overall goals. Take care of yourself. Leading through a crisis can be incredibly stressful. Make sure you are taking care of your own physical and mental health. Now let's try to recall a case study of leading through crisis. To illustrate these principles in action, let's look at a case study in 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic forced businesses worldwide to shut down or drastically change their operations. One company that managed to navigate this crisis successfully was some of the IT companies. They quickly implemented a remote work policy, communicated regularly with employees, and provided them with the resources they needed to stay productive and engaged. As a result, the company not only survived the pandemic but thrived. Leading through a crisis is never easy, but it's a test of true leadership. By staying calm, communicating clearly, empowering your team, and focusing on the big picture, you can not only survive a crisis but emerge from it stronger than ever. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into leading through crisis. Remember, the most important thing is to stay calm, communicate clearly, and take care of your team. Until next time, keep learning and leading.